assisting clients using friendly communication. So we talked about addressing the client yesterday using our spot analogy and all that fun stuff. But today we're going to be talking about demonstrating active listening by nodding, making eye contact, and then finally paraphrasing back to the customer what they said so that both they and you know if you understood exactly what they were saying correctly. Next, asking open-ended probing questions to gather additional information. And then also explain complex concepts in clear, concise, client-friendly language. Probing means you're trying to gather more information. So it is essentially you're trying to like get them to go deeper into that subject rather than just say my computer's broke. So you're asking more open-ended questions like, oh, can you please show me what broke looks like? You know, oh, is your internet? Oh, can you tell me when you first experienced this? What was going on exactly at the time that this occurred? You know, so you're asking questions to try to get them to remember and provide you with further information. List and demonstrate the 9 steps involved in assisting an upset client. We had our, little bit of a breakout session yesterday where we pretended to be upset clients. Apparently Simhar was a hit when she was acting as an upset client, so she nailed that exercise. So we're going to work on the 9 steps on how to assist an upset client. Fix the client first and then work on the problem. Yes, Mark.
Hey, Kelly, we need to share the link.
I thought I did that already.
It probably got lost in all of the chat.
Got lost. I got to spam it in the chat a little more. Oh, man. Whoop, it doesn't help if you don't hit enter. Wow, that really didn't work. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. There we go. And next, am I even recording? Yes, awesome.
You're recording.
Good to know. All right, 3 key principles of client-friendly communication. 1, active listening. To let them know that you're listening. Don't be on your phone. Don't be kind of looking off into space, looking out the windows, stuff like that. When I was a snotty teenager, when I was being lectured, I would always make it a point to stare past the person with a blank stare, and then they were done, go, I'm sorry, what did you say? Doesn't work. They tend to get upset. So we want to actively look them in the eyes, nod, be understanding, and then paraphrase back to them, hey, is this what you meant? 2, asking questions, and then being able to explain concepts in user-friendly language. Also, in that process of explaining those concepts, you need to gauge the level of skill of the person you're talking to. If they are operating at a pretty high level on computers, you're not going to explain to them exactly what a RAM module does or the difference between memory and storage. You're going to try to talk to them at their level. So in those probing questions you're asking, depending on the lingo they're using, that is going to give you an indicator of their level of skill. Also, please pay attention to people using terms out of context, because that may be somebody trying to sound like they know more about it than they do. So when you start hearing them using terms out of context, that is a good indicator of that as well. So next, using client-friendly language can help make sure that the client is satisfied with the interaction, leading to future successful interactions as well. You don't want them to feel like you're talking down to them. You don't want them to feel like you're, lobbing, answers over their head and just expecting them to, go ahead and research it later. You want them to feel as if you were just talking to them like they're, an average person, and just having a conversation, kind of explaining what's going on and trying to get this taken care of. So If this customer is happy with the service, they are more likely to come back to you in the future. If it is in an outsourced situation where you're helping, individuals' personal computer use, then they're more likely going to pick you again, thereby garnering more more money, more success for your particular company. If it is within an organization or an enterprise situation and they are comfortable working with you, likely the next time they call in, they're going to ask for you by name. And if you have a lot of people calling and asking for you by name, that sends a signal to your manager. One, you're doing your job right. And likely they may want you to be in a position where you may be training others in order to do this correctly. So it helps improve your value to the team. So assisting upset clients in resolving problems before they escalate can help save the company time and money. So first, remain calm. This is very difficult sometimes. Some people can be extremely irate or grating, or some people just know how to push your buttons. You got to remain calm. Don't take it personally. They are not necessarily angry with you. They are angry with the situation they are now faced with. And it could be something where their career is on the line. And if you're now faced with a situation where you don't know, you won't, be able to pay your rent or feed your family because of a computer problem, you're going to be highly emotionally charged to get that situation taken care of. So don't take it personally. They're likely, upset at the situation. Use your listening skills, your active listening skills. We'll get into some of this stuff a little bit later. Show that you heard what the client said. Express sympathy. You don't need to be very, degrading about it, or, like, oh, how sad for you. You don't want to get into that kind of mode, but yes, express a little bit of sympathy. Like, oh man, that's terrible. I'm sorry you're experiencing this. Apologize gracefully. Oh yes, there absolutely are tiers within help desk. Find a solution. Try to start the solution in motion. And when you're doing things for a client, explain to them what you're doing. Don't just jump in there and start fixing things on the computer and start opening and closing things. That's a good way to really freak somebody out, because people have a lot of personal and private information on their computers and they don't necessarily want a stranger poking around in their systems. So explain to them what they're doing, ask them if it's okay, things like that. And then when you're done, communicate your appreciation, because we do appreciate them, even though they bring those, they trusted us with some of their worst problems. And we want to communicate like, hey, thank you for trusting us. I appreciate your business. I appreciate you coming to us for help. Hopefully we did a good job. If we didn't, let us know how we can correct it, things like that. Let them know that you actually value them as a customer. All right. So we already talked about addressing the client. So in this particular session, we're going to focus on how to engage in a technical conversation with that client. Yes, Jessica.
I'm just trying to picture the process. So I want to assume that it's good practice that as you're probing and talking to the customer, that it's okay to take notes.
Yes.
Because I know overall, when we're done with every troubleshooting issue, we want to document, we want to make sure we're taking notes. So
Correct.
I guess as an IT specialist, after you're done working a ticket or supporting a client, you have that moment to go back and pretty much recap what happened and make that documentation.
Well, if you're in person, you're not at your computer, I would, just you initiate the conversation, like when you're talking to them, and you're about to start talking about the technical issues, just, to say, hey, do you mind if I take notes? Just, for my own memory. And then, 99 times out of 100, I can be like, yes, please do. And so that bypasses that situation right there. So, when you're taking notes, but again, you want to look more at what they're talking at them when they're talking, and in the pauses, write down, brief notes. you know, or ask them to, you know, like, oh, do you mind if we pause for just 1 second? I want to just catch up and make sure I don't forget anything or lose anything. So there's that case. If you're working remotely and you're kind of talking to them on the phone, you're likely going to have a system where you would take notes in, and then you can go back and kind of clean those notes up later.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So next, think about everything that you have already learned about solving technical problems for your clients, and you will learn so much more over the next few weeks. We do try to talk about that as much as we can. How much do you think your clients know about the types of technology you will be assisting with? You can just kind of call out on this one. So how much do you think they know about the technology you're going to be helping them with?
Is that a question to us?
Yes, that is a question to you.
0, because if they knew what the problem was, they wouldn't call us.
Possibly. Yes, Joseph.
I think usually they always know a lot about the technology. That's why in the first place they have it. Remember, we are not the ones starting it with them. For example, a person possesses a laptop or PC and is operating it. It just got stuck on the way before taking it to us for either repair or correcting a problem on it. So they know a lot about it. What they don't know is what they took to us for correction. So,
a lot. Okay, my bad. Sorry, I didn't hear the full question. I thought you said, never mind. My apologies to you guys.
No, I mean, but the thing is, DW, what do you think?
I think it'll vary case by case and customer by customer. You might have someone who's turning on their mobile device or computer for the first time, or you might have someone who instantly works with it and something is just not working properly at that moment, or something changed from the last time they changed it. So definitely you got to ask questions and figure out where they're at. You know. So
Okay.
That's what I think.
Fair point. I like that. Last one, Julian.
So I think you could have both sides of the coin on that. You could have someone that really has no idea how anything works in technology. And then you could also have another person that knows how to work things, but again, they have other things to worry about. Say like in an enterprise area, they're gonna say like in a financing company, they're gonna be like, I have all the things to worry about. I'm gonna call help desk to fix this for me as fast as possible.
And there's a possibility as well. So yeah, case by case basis, it can vary drastically the skill level of who you're dealing with. Hint, hint. Programmers need IT support too. Some of it even may come down to access. Like they know what the problem is, but they don't have the level of access needed to be able to solve that problem. So there are a pretty broad range of customers you will experience with regards to technology when you're taking care of it. Let's see here, Susan, can you read for us, please, just the first bullet point?
Although your clients will have varying levels of experience and knowledge, it is likely that you will know much more about technology than your clients. In this session, we are going to discuss the best ways to communicate with clients so that they are able to understand the information you are telling them.
Excellent, thank you. Leela, can you read the second bullet point for us, please? I think she is frozen. Leela, are you there? All right. Hunter, can you please read the second bullet point for us, please?
When assisting clients with their technology, many of them will be friendly and kind. However, you should expect to work with clients that are upset and challenging.
Excellent, thank you. The upset one happens a lot. Jerusalem, can you please read the third bullet point for us? You are muted, ma'am. You are muted. Can't hear you.
Sorry.
No
Why
worries.
do you think a client might start an interaction with you? His or her IT professional already upset?
So why do you think? Why would somebody be already upset by the time you got to them? Or anyone?
Oh, maybe they had a bad experience prior to seeing me.
That's possible. If anybody has ever had to call Comcast twice,
Yes.
the second time you call them, you are not near as friendly. Then you start to realize, well, maybe this is why they're not so friendly either. It's like it becomes a recursive loop. Why else might somebody be upset by the time they get to you? Good answer, though.
They some people, they just want to set stone that they're upset already. I feel that way sometimes.
That's yeah. Well, there are some people out there, I'm not gonna lie, that they adhere to the axiom, squeaky wheel gets the grease. So they immediately
I
come
think
in,
this
they
is what
come
they
in
would
with
say.
that
They would say
attitude.
like, I'm gonna start being blunt and being loud. They will just set stone for you. That's the standard for some.
I would agree. Cynthia.
So the question is, why do you think a client might start an interaction with you, his or her IT professional already upset?
Yes.
So basically, because you're calm, because you seem like like part of your presence, sometimes people can notice that if a client is upset and they can't figure out, like, this person's not paying attention to why I need my situation fixed, they might see you as a person that can actually get it done. Like, it's like I feel like you have to read the room, like you have to see the big picture. It's not always just one specific thing. But if your client's upset, it could just be that obviously if your client's upset, it's because no one has fixed your client's problem. So
Okay.
that it's a whole bunch of different variables. But if you as a professional come off as calm and usually clients can read that, like, it's just so many different variables that come into play. But usually the case, if you have a good reputation, if you're in a company and yeah, Cynthia can get the job done. She's done simple things, she's done complicated things. So, and she's always pleasant and the reputation is key. You always want to be professional. You always want to be the person like, hey, I can come talk to Leela, or I can go and Vancata knows what you're talking about. Yeah, Julian, yeah, he's the kind of guy that, he'll go bend over backwards for you just to fix your to fix the situation. Customer service. So reputation, you want to make sure that you have a good reputation no matter where you go, whether it's left, right, up or down, sideways, whatever, don't matter.
Exactly. All right, we'll do one more. Venkata.
Yeah, I see that, sometimes if they have a meeting with the important client and their system is not working all of a sudden, sometimes I see that they are supposed to do a presentation and suddenly it says Windows updating.
Yes.
It happened to me once and I was like frozen, like what to do now?
Yeah, and that would be like, they're in panic mode because like there's something very important to their career or whatever, what have you. Or it could be very valuable information. It could be, photos, like old family photos that they had digitized, and these are the only copies of them, and they got lost. They're not able to find them. So that would be a very emotionally charged situation. So there's a multitude of reasons why somebody might come in already upset. So excellent. All right. For this one, Rachel, can you please read for us?
When you are on the job, you will be assisting many different clients. In the session, we are going to discuss the best ways to communicate with clients so that they are able to understand the information you are telling them. As we learn to best communicate with our clients, we will also discuss how to assist a client who is upset. We want to ensure that every client has the best possible experience.
Excellent. Thank you. So as we're talking to those clients, even if we're not able to solve their problem, if they know that we've addressed their situation, we're empathetic to their needs, we have done everything we can, sometimes it's not recoverable. But even in those cases, if we've taken care of the customer well, they likely will come back to us and they'll still, want to do business with us because of how we handle the situation. So previous sessions, we discussed how to effectively address a client. Who remembers the 4 steps? What are they?
Smile,
Smile,
present yourself.
present yourself,
Anybody else? I don't want to say it all.
Offer to help.
offer to help,
Thank them for their time. Well, say thank you.
and thank the customer.
Woohoo.
Nice. So spot. So smile, welcome the clients as if they are friends coming to your house. Present yourself, offer to help the client, and thank the client. All right. Up next, Maftuna, can you please read for us? Thank you for the dad joke, Mark. Appreciate it very much.
Active listening. After you have greeted the client, it will be time to begin discussing the client's needs. Whenever you are working with a client, there are 3 separate skills that you should keep in mind to make strong client communication. Active listening, ask probing questions, and explaining concepts using client-friendly language. We will start by discussing the idea of active listening. To get ready to think about this, we are going to do an activity.
Probably not. We're going to skip over that one for right now, just because, but thank you, Maftuna. I appreciate it. Probably going to skip over that one just for the sake of time, because we do have a lot to go with on this one. All right. Let's see here. Here we go. Yeah, only like we're at 14. We got to get to 41. I understand where you're coming from, Hunter. I think they may, it just might be like, thank you for trusting us, to take care of your problem or something like that.
Yeah, I get it. It's just a personal thing. Like, it drives me absolutely crazy.
What was it? The movie Date Night with Steve Carell? And they're going to that restaurant. It's like, Claw, you're welcome. That's how they answered the phone. So before they've even done anything for you, they're just like, yeah, you're welcome. But so one of the keys to talking with clients is active listening. That is the biggest thing we want to stress. And what do we think of when we think of active listening? What comes to mind for you? Like, how do you know when somebody is listening to you? Cynthia.
They're nodding, they're focused on you and what you're saying. They'll ask questions, like if they weren't sure about something, they would actually ask, oh, what was that? Like you just said, you know, like sometimes it happens, but usually someone's actually focused and just tuned in. That's active listening. And then passive listening is, well, something else, but yeah. That's just somebody zoned into what you're saying and fully grasped and engaged in the conversation.
Okay, so they're nodding. Jessica, what active, you know, what attributes of somebody you're talking to lets them know you're listening to them, or they're listening to you, excuse me?
I would definitely say body language plays a big part, from gestures, you know, piggybacking off what Cynthia said, the head nods, eye contact. And then also, if, you know, sometimes when you're talking, if somebody's really listening, you know, you get the on cues, but then when you really know they're listening is when they make a comment about what you just said, or they have a question about what you just said. So that way they can keep keeping along with you and have that understanding. That lets me know somebody's actively listening.
So you got a little bit of, you know, body language. They're looking you in the eyes. They're giving you a little bit of verbal cues, like at the appropriate times, not like, you know, oh man, you know, this is terrible. Do you think people should do this awful stuff? You know, then you know they're not listening at that point.
Kids will you like, is the house on fire? Oh, it is, huh?
So it's bad. It's bad when they figure that out, and then instead of saying they just say, "I understand," because that could go either way. Like, oh, that's understood. Joseph.
Yeah, basically, I agree with Jessica and Cynthia.
Okay.
What I would just like to add is we don't want to tell the client, continue talking, I'm listening, while our attention is on something different with another screwdriver, you know, and they're talking, we're not having eye contact with them.
Okay. All good points. Very good. So there's key indicators. Some of them may be a little hard to put our finger on exactly what it is that clues us in that the person is listening to us. And it's also very different in a digital world like this versus being, you know, in person. So we're going to be looking for very different things with regards to that. Yes, Cynthia.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes it depends on the situation, but I think it's hard to study online when it's a group of people because there's so many factors that come into play that might chop up the communication. So, you know, usually I feel like that's a skill that's to be honed, especially online. If you're doing remote troubleshooting, is that you definitely let the client know that you're there every step of the way, even if the communication gets chopped up. That's another point of active listening. To also let the other person know, hey, I was following, but this happened. So it's a different feel. It's you know, it's nothing beats being in person with a client. You know, it's just that personable thing.
Yes, it does make it easier, and that's, you know, kind of like, we know that in a digital sense it's hard to kind of create that sense of community. So that's why we try to do that here as much as we can, so that, you know, allow kind of each of your personalities to kind of come out a little bit. You know, that helps us get to know each of you better. You know, makes it feel more like we're here in person, even though we're scattered all over the country at this point. Normally it's just up and down the East Coast, but some people who essentially, you know, just love the torture, want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, have decided to come in and join our group as well too. And we got some Midwesterners and stuff like that as well. So we just try to create that community where we can. Some active listening skills we all can work on from time to time. It's not a static thing. You can't say, "Ooh, I've checked that box, I'm good to go." This is something that we are constantly honing and working on as we go. Pay attention. What is the person saying? You know, we shouldn't be thinking about that nasty email we got to send to our Comcast cable provider later that afternoon. You know, we need to be there, you know, looking in, you know, paying attention to what they're saying, focusing on what their problem is. Take notes. You know, obviously just let them know, hey, if you don't mind, we'll be taking notes just so that I can remember all the important details of what you're telling me. Should we interrupt clients to ask relevant questions?
I'm sorry, say that again, Kelly. Should we
interrupt clients to ask relevant questions?
Very gracefully and well, 50-50, I say gracefully yes, or if it's possible, you could wait for them to reach the period of that sentence, say, hey, really quickly, because it's a value, may you X, Y, Z, and get that clarification. That's a tough one, Kelly.
That is a very tough one, isn't it? So yeah, you should wait for a break in that conversation and say, do you mind if I ask a question or something like that? Yes, Leela.
I think it depends on how long-winded they are, because some people can, go on and on and on. So I think if you can find a good breaking point, maybe they might take a breath.
Oh man, why do I feel that was directed at me? Oh, that's so hurtful.
Oh no.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh no, you're not long-winded at all. I know long-winded people. You're not.
I'm kidding. But yeah, and like I dealt with people in transportation, like when they would call you to tell you they had a flat tire, the conversation would start with when I got up this morning. And they would tell you about their entire day that led up to the culmination of that tire blowing, So I get exactly what you're saying. So Rachel, did you have one to add for this?
Yeah, sometimes you should politely interrupt so it can help for them to understand how they need to express themselves to you. It can help direct their thinking more appropriately.
That is fair. That is fair. I like it. Hunter.
There was a question. I think it was in a Coursera lab. It might have been like a test out or something else. But it was one that got me because the question asked, a client brings you something and you're working on it. It was something very specific. I don't remember. And they start trying to ask you questions about what you're doing. And it asks you what would be the appropriate response. And I thought it would be like every other one, stop what you're doing, answer the customer's questions, attend to them first. But the answer ended up being like, hey, you don't want to be distracted while you're doing something because it's very important. Just politely, explain to them that you need to finish what you were doing. And then at the end, you will explain everything. So, I mean, that was one situation that kind of caught me off guard, where it was like, hey, kind of stop them there so that, I guess it didn't want you to be like letting them talk, but not listening, ignoring what they're saying. That would be a worse option.
Yeah, please let me finish this so I don't destroy your computer, and then we can have a conversation about it. So yeah.
In general, though, I think not interrupting is a good rule of thumb.
Yep, I would agree. What about reading between the lines? Should we be doing that with customers? Is that a good active listening? I know what they meant. Yes, Cynthia?
No, you want to make sure that you're really clear on what the client just said, because you don't want to assume anything. Like, make no assumptions. If you don't know, just let the client know, I didn't fully understand what you were saying. Can you just change it up so that you know that you're actively listening to them, but you didn't register.
Yes. And this is where the paraphrasing what they said, you say like, so would it be safe to say this is what you're experiencing, and see if that matches what they are experiencing?
Paraphrase.
So that may be a way to kind of read between the lines, but don't just assume what it is the customer is needing. And that allows us to skip over the very next one. Make assumptions to be more efficient. No, we definitely don't want to do that. That can lead to very bad outcomes. Next, finishing the client's sentences. Is that a good active listening? So I know you guys don't normally come here for it, but a little piece of relationship advice for your significant others. If you jump in and finish their sentences for them, they think you're in sync. So they love it. You know, they think you're on the same level. So if you just jump in there and finish your sentences for them a lot, they absolutely just, you know, like, man, we're on the same level. Yes, Venkata. Did you have a add on to this, Venkata?
You're saying reading between the lines is not good. Like, for example, if we sense that when they're, for example, if we sense that they are doing something really wrong and it's going to blow up, like, for example, if their phone is dropped in water, they will call with another phone. It's not working. I'm going to put it for charging and see.
Okay.
Then, I don't know. I think we can stop, and I think there we can assume something, right? And we can say.
Well, that's where the paraphrasing comes in handy. So you don't want to necessarily read between the lines and just assume that they're trying to say something. Just paraphrase back to them and say, okay, is it safe to say this is what you're experiencing? And just kind of reiterate to them what it is they're seeing.
Yeah.
So that would be a safe way to go about it. All right. Assess the client's level of experience, or assess the client's level of experience with technology. Is this something we should do?
Yes.
Okay. Elaborate.
Because if you assess their level of experience with technology, you'll know how to communicate with them.
Okay.
Everyone doesn't know technology. So if you start using, you know, technological words, they might not understand.
Yes. If you start rambling off about the piezoelectric effect on the motherboard, they may not follow you. And they might become annoyed, sleepy, various other things, and may not feel you're providing them with good service. So I like that, Lena. Yes, Jessica.
I feel yes and no a little bit. Yes, I feel yes in regards to, I think that'll make the customer feel more comfortable when you speak to them at a level they're familiar with, so they could feel like they're part of the effort in fixing the problem. So that way you get more information from them a little bit more willingly, but at the same time, don't run off the cliff and start talking about all 1,000 acronyms you don't learn doing your course, where now they're like, okay, what just happened? I thought we were connected. Now you lost me. So you don't want to assume how much knowledge they know, but just play it close to what they shared and try to use that as a point to, exploit them for more probing questions, because now they're engaged and more willing.
Okay. Fair point. Thank you. Susan.
Also, from my experience as having assistance from IT in the past, I wanted to learn and I wanted to understand, and I was working on Macs, and the IT people, that's not their favorite. So I wanted to be able to troubleshoot as much to my ability so I didn't have to bother them. And I think some people just want to know too. That's all.
Very true. Very true. Excellent. Thank you. DW. Well, two more. We'll do DW and then Jerusalem.
Yeah, I think assessing the client's level of experience with technology is definitely a part of active listening, because while you're listening, you can say, okay, this person understands this, understands that, but doesn't understand this, and that gives you a basis in which to interact with them. So if you're actively listening, you should definitely be assessing where they're at with the technology, I think.
Excellent. And Jerusalem.
Yes, so I would agree with DW. Basically, I would say no, because when you're asking the probing questions, you would be able to know where they're at and they're.
Well, that would possibly be part of the assessment, right?
Right.
I mean, you're not going to ask them to take a quiz when they call you, like, hey, can you please fill this out and then we'll talk.
Well, you're asking because of the issue that they have.
True. Yes.
While asking, you would know, by actively listening, you would know exactly where they're at.
Correct. So that in that process of active listening, you will be assessing their technical skill.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, because sometimes if you really, really ask it in a way assertively, hey, do you know this? Do you not know this? They might take it personally.
Yes.
I just think.
So just in that conversation, when you're asking those probing questions, based on the language they're using, explaining it to you,
exactly,
you will understand it. Yes.
Exactly. Because it could come across really, you have to.
No, you're not going to quiz them and just be like, hey.
Yes.
You
got it. Thank you.
Do you know what the DNS is? Do you know how important that is to your daily life?
Exactly.
I mean, we're not going to be going into probing questions like that. So, but yeah, I agree with you on that point. You're not going to be quizzing them. You're not going to be asking them, but based on how they tell you, how they talk to you, that'll give you a good clue. All right. In the active listening process, are we going to assess the client's emotional state? Yes. Yes. This is a skill. I'm not going to lie. This is a skill. Being able to assess someone's emotional state. I'm not going to lie. I'm terrible at this. I'm absolutely horrendous at assessing people's emotional state. If you tell me you're fine, I'm like, okay, moving right along. I'm absolutely awful at determining, the emotional state. This is where, like Marvin was really good. He kind of chimed in and be like, dude, they're not fine. So he would kind of, let me know, like, no, you're way off the mark here. You need to, pay a little more attention. So this is definitely a learned skill, having emotional intelligence. It was so bad that my boss at SMC assigned me a course to understand emotional intelligence better. So it's a skill. It's worth developing. It's great for customer service and things like that, being able to kind of read the room, so to speak. So assessing emotional state. Yes. Listen for unspoken requests. Is that what we're doing here? No. That falls under that assumptions level, doesn't it? And also, when we're doing repairs, we don't gold plate it. We don't go in and, basically make everything fancy and shiny and do all these extra bells and whistles and turn on all these functions for the customer and all that stuff just because we think they're going to like it. No, we do what they need us to do. No more. We don't gold plate it. One, you may be inadvertently causing problems for the customer. Two, you may be wasting time and money for your employer. So it's a negative on both sides. Do what the customer is needing help with. Don't gold plate it. Good rule for the exam too. Do what they ask you to do and only what they ask you to do. Don't assume that they want you to do other things. So When you're doing the performance-based, only do what they're asking you to do. That's it. Test out too. Very good point, Mark. Test out's very good about just laying out. I want you to do this, 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 and this. You can use it like a checklist and you just kind of scratch it off as you go. Like, okay, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. I'm done. I don't need to do any more. And then lastly, paraphrase what the client has said. We have stated this one pretty regularly. Just when they tell you what the problem is, what has occurred, that is a good way for your mind to absorb the information and let the customer know, hey, they were paying attention. So you just kind of paraphrase it back to them, say, you know, is this what you're experiencing? And then you just kind of change the words a little bit, paraphrase it, and see if they come back with an affirmative or a negative. If it's a negative, they can re-explain it to you, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding. All right. Just went over this one here. So paraphrase, it's basically to express the meanings of what the person said using different words. It's a way to achieve clarity, make sure both you understood it and the customer knows that you understood what they were telling you. You know, you would initiate a phrase like this by like, so what I hear you saying is, or is it safe to assume, or what you're telling me is, and then you kind of basically, you know, rephrase the problem back to them and then see if they will give you the, you know, yes, thank you. Oh, I love this one. Take out a piece of paper. We're gonna, it's art class, people. Cynthia told us how important this was. We now are going to get to practice our art skills.
Bring out the crayon, guys.
So we're going to do the same thing twice. I need to pull up a different where'd it go? So I got to pull this up real quick. I love this. This exercise is always entertaining. So while everybody is getting their piece of paper and a pencil out, you can even use your computer and go to the Paint program if you wish. Perfect, DW. What was the old blonde joke? I can use this one because I'm a blonde. How do you know blonde was using a word processor? There's whiteout all over the screen. Okay, you don't have to use the paint program. You can just use a piece of paper and a pen if you want. I'm just trying to get to it real quick. So we're going to go through the set of directions twice. First time through, you cannot ask questions. I'm going to be reading to you very specific instructions. You'll be following those instructions, making a picture. And then we're going to go through those same set of instructions a second time, except that time you get to ask questions. All right, everybody ready? Give me a thumbs up. Got a piece of paper, got paint up, ready to go. Feeling artistic today? Oops. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the directions. All right, I got it. So everybody ready? First step, draw a circle. Step 2, draw a line in that circle. Step 3, draw 2 dots within that circle. Step 4, draw 3 lines that come out of that circle. Next, you want to draw another circle next to the first one, slightly overlapping. Then you're going to draw 2 lines connected to the circle. Now you're going to draw 2 small lines connected to the first 2 lines you drew. Next, you're going to draw another circle next to the second one, slightly overlapping. Then we're going to draw yet another circle next to the third one, slightly overlapping. Then we will draw 2 lines coming out of that circle, or connected to that circle, excuse me. Ooh, is that a hint? Oh, maybe. I don't know. I forget. And then finally, draw two small lines connected to the first two lines you just drew. Are we done? Now's the fun part, show and tell. Who wants to share their drawing? All right, Susan. Looks like something out of a math equation. Julian? All right. See here, Leela. I got it. Vinkata. Jerusalem. All right. Lorraine, see it? So now we're going to do this again. But this time, you get to ask questions. So flip the page over. We're going to redraw it. This time it is a two-way communication. And I will be answering questions. So step one, draw a circle.
How big?
How big? Say, if you have a standard sheet of paper, probably about the size of a, like a soda can around.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions on that one?
Where on the sheet of paper?
I would say position it more to the leftward side of the piece of paper you're working on. So on the left third of your paper. So we'll draw our little circle like that. I don't know if I mentioned it for this class, actual showcase of skill for an artist is to be able to draw a perfect circle. If you think that's hard, give it a shot. It is extremely difficult to draw a near perfect circle. In fact, some artists spend their entire careers trying to get it perfect to see if they can absolutely get a perfect curve. And did I tell you guys about that already? Or no? I think it was Galileo was actually arrested. When he was being arrested, he was actually at his drawing board trying to create the perfect circle. And when the guards showed up to try to arrest him, he was so busy with his work, he kept trying to dismiss the guards, like shoo them off, because he wanted to finish his, you know, his work. All right. So next question, or next, are we ready for step two? Are there any other questions? Step two, draw a line in that circle.
Where? Top, middle, bottom?
I would say towards the leftward side, like left lower. So probably about here.
Is it up and down?
Vertical or horizontal line?
It'd be a horizontal line going inwards into the circle and then a slight curve up. So it'll look kind of like that.
Do you want the line to go from edge to edge in the circle?
Nope, only about halfway to 2/3 of the way through.
Not all the way through, got it.
Not
So
all
like
the
a-
way through.
A curved radius.
Like a slight curve upwards, like coming in and then slightly curving up. Starting from the leftward lower edge. So kind of like that. Any other questions? Step 3, draw 2 dots in this circle.
How big?
If you drew the circle the size of a like a soda can radius, I would say about the size of a pencil eraser. Where? Next to each other, slightly above your curved line that you already had.
Should these circles be like hollow or filled in? Does it matter?
Let's go with filled in. They're dots, so yeah, we'll fill them in. Next. Are we ready for step 3? All right, step 3, draw 2 lines coming out of the circle.
Starting from where?
Near the top center for the first one, and it's going to slightly curve to the left as it comes out. So comes out, curves to the left. The other one is a little bit further left on the circle, but it touches the edge of it and curves out.
So you want the first line to be inside of the circle.
Starts just barely inside the circle, and then it works its way out of the circle and slightly curves to the left. And then the second, if you did about a soda can, let's say about the first line, probably about 1.5 inches. Second line, probably about 1 inch. Is everybody ready for the next step? All right. Next step, draw another circle next to the first circle.
Is it the same size of first circle or a little bit bigger?
I'd say it's a little bit smaller, actually. So it is just slightly smaller. On the right-hand side of the circle and overlapping as if it is underneath the circle. So, you know, something kind of like that. on the right side of the first circle.
My circles are starting to look like Kelly's.
There you go. See, I am not an artist. I cannot draw perfect circles. All right. So next we draw draw two lines connected to the circle that you just drew. So they're connected, so they're not in. Go ahead.
Bottom, like bottom of the circle?
Yes. So I'd say about an inch long, coming out slow, like one going at an angle to the right, one going at an angle to the left, but connected to the edge. So one going like this, one going like this.
I mean, from which side of the circle?
The bottom side of the circle is where you're going to be drawing the two lines. So one slightly angling to the left, one slightly angling to the right, but connected to the edge of the circle. They are straight lines. Off of the bottom of the circle. All right, next. Are we ready for the next step? So we draw two smaller lines connected to the first two lines we drew.
Ones on the first circle or the ones on the second circle?
On the second circle, the lines we just drew on the second circle.
Are the lines straight or curved?
They are straight. And in fact, they're connected. Go ahead, DW.
At what angle?
About 90 degrees facing to the left for both of them at the very end of the lines. So like this, like that. Let me know when you're ready for the next step. If anybody walks in and sees what we're doing, just tell them this is serious. This is serious work, people. All right, next step, draw another circle next to the second one you drew, slightly overlapping.
Over or under?
To the right and the exact same size as the second one. Kind of like
Oh, this one.
this.
The next circle then is next to the one where you just put the legs on. And the next circle is overlapping the other circle you just did and about the same size.
Yep.
Wait, can you repeat the last instruction?
Sure. The last instruction is draw another circle next to the second one you drew, slightly overlapping.
Same size as the second circle?
Correct. Same size as the second circle. If my drawing does not illustrate that, please ignore it.
What already the difference between the two? Because we didn't have the benefit of asking questions. No, this is what I did the first time because he said draw three lines coming from the circle.
All right, we ready for the last instruction? Or the
Draw a
next,
circle.
draw another circle next to the third one you drew, slightly overlapping.
Same size again?
Same size.
Same size as the second and the third, yes. Like that. and to the right-hand side of that third one. Now it's 2 lines connected. Draw 2 lines connected to the circle you just drew.
Same length as the ones on the second circle?
Yes.
And
Same angles too. Same length and angles as the one on circle number 2.
Connected to the edge of the circle or coming from inside the circle?
Connected to the edge. And finally, draw 2 little lines connected to the lines you just drew.
Same angles as the second circle?
Same angles as the second circle, pointing to the left-hand side, 90-degree angle connected to the very end of the lines. Ooh.
Sorry, my son is drawing along with us, so I had to repeat the instructions.
No problem. Not a problem. All right. Show and tell. What does the second one look like? All right. It's almost like we're all on the same page now.
Will the ants be on the 1001 or the 1002?
More likely in your interview. So good job, everyone, on that one. Kind of trying to stress the point of the difference in active listening. We all kind of came up with something that looked kind of similar to this, I hope. And how does that compare to your first one? When you weren't able to ask questions or you didn't ask questions, I know we weren't able to, but in a scenario where you're receiving instructions and you don't ask questions, the outcomes can be very different, even though the directions are pretty much the same. And we used multiple methods. We allowed you to ask questions. We did a visual descriptor of what it is we were doing. You know, yes, exactly. Without instructions, it's an abstract situation. So all right. So now we discussed some other elements of active listening. You noted that good listeners do not make assumptions or do things like complete their client's sentences. Instead of making assumptions, a good listener will ask probing questions. So what exactly is a probing question?
An open-ended question in regards to the matter at hand.
Okay. Fair. Leela.
Questions that you ask to gain more insight about the problem.
That is a very definitional explanation. I like it. So yeah, it is a question specifically designed to garner more information. Joseph, did you have something to add to that one? Very good, Leela.
Yes, just to say another way is a question intended to go beyond what has been stated, so that the answer will clarify a direction or what has been stated.
Yes. Excellent. Also, want to commend you on your color choice for shirt today. I think you're looking very smart.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So yes, it's a probing question. It's meant to garner more information about that particular subject, clarify any other, possible hazy spots in that or in the scenario for you, and help you see the problem a little more clearly. So very good. All right. So asking probing questions, it relates to what the client is saying, but tries to get additional information. It's asking for more specific details to get a better and fuller picture of the issue. Asking good questions is a key to communication in a client-friendly manner. By asking the right questions, you can improve communication by getting better information and building stronger relationships with your clients. It is important to ask good questions because the quality of the questions will directly impact the quality of the answers and your ability to troubleshoot and effectively solve the customer's problem. So this is definitely something to practice whenever you can. I like to practice, honestly, with my eldest son, because, you know, when you ask kids, like, how was your day at school? Fine. Did you learn anything? Yes. You don't really get clear answers. So you have to start asking those probing questions, you know, like, well, tell me something great you did today. Okay. And, you know, because they love talking about themselves. So they'll get in there and they'll start telling you about something that they did that was really good, that the teacher might have praised them for. Like, okay, well, what was something you could have done better? And then, you know, they'll tell you something where they, you know, might have not done so good. And then you kind of build upon that. So you can do this, you know, with friends, family, what have you, but practice in social situations, just kind of asking these questions appropriately. I want to stress that, please, appropriately. But, you know, like if they're telling you a story, you know, ask further questions, you know, learn a little bit more about that story, about that subject. And that will also carry over as you develop that skill into good customer service as well. Questions, comments, concerns? All right. Imagine you are standing outside your house or apartment or what have you. And a woman comes up to you and says, help, I can't find my hotel. You can see that she's holding a tote bag from the name of a hotel on it. You could assume that you know she's staying in that hotel and give her directions, but you know that good active listening means you don't make assumptions. What type of questions should you ask this woman to make sure to help her the best way you can?
What's the name of the hotel you're staying in?
Pretty straightforward one, because that bag could have been from the previous trip, right? Or if it's a national chain, she could have stayed at one in another city. So what's the name of the hotel? That's a good question. Any other questions? Does she have a street address? That's a good one. What street is it on? If she doesn't know the actual, you know, street address itself, like, oh, it's the one on Bay Street. So good. You're getting into, yes, Julian.
I would ask her, did you get that bag at your hotel?
There you go. Did you get that bag from your hotel? That might be very helpful. And the street address may actually be on the bag, because a lot of them like to advertise that kind of stuff. So, you know, they may put it on there. It's kind of like car dealerships. They love slapping their sticker all over whatever car is coming out of there. Used for future advertising. So that'd be a great question. So yeah, these are different ways. Instead of just assuming, you know, hey, you're staying at, you know, the Holiday Inn on 3rd Street. It's 2 blocks that way, you know, 2 blocks north and 1 east. Ask her, you know, get a little bit more detailed information. So next, when you're talking to a client, trying to get as much information as possible to help the person with the problem, There will be even more questions you'll need to ask. Imagine that the client comes up to you and says, his computer will not turn on. Even without considering specific problems, might be, what questions might you ask this person? Is it charged or plugged in? Is the device plugged in? Has someone used it before you? When was the last time it worked properly? Have you removed the power supply and tested it with the PSU? Hopefully not. How did it shut down? Was it abruptly? Did you power it down? When was the last time you used it? All great questions. And these will lead you to specific answers. Did it just shut down while they were using it? Did they turn it on yesterday when they left for the day after they turned it off? They came in this morning and it's not working. Hold on, let me get a flashlight. I can't see if it's plugged in because the lights are out in the building. You know, all these little fun tidbits that will kind of tell you what's going on. So absolutely. So you want to ask as many specific questions as possible. You want to try to avoid questions that are yes, no answers. You want to, that's what they mean by open-ended. You want to kind of let them give room to let them explain things a little bit. What happened after you rebooted? What did you try to do when installing the update? These are kind of examples of open-ended questions where you're trying to probe for more information. So now let's go a step further. Several categories of probing questions that you should consider asking your clients. Of course, you may not need to ask all of these questions every single time, but you should consider them when speaking to your client and determine which ones you need to know to help solve the problem. So you're sticking with the what, when, why, where, and how. Examples of this: what is wrong? What are the details of what's happening? When did it happen? How often? Has it happened before? Is there a pattern? Every time I go on a business trip, whenever I come back, my internet's not working. There's a pattern there. What's happening? Why did it happen? Last week I was at a party, we were listening to music, and I thought, you know what? I wanted to go swimming, so I took my laptop with me into the pool just so that we could still hear the tunes, and ever since that pool party, it just doesn't want to turn on. In what location did it happen? Was it at the office? Was it at home? Was it in transit? And how did it happen? I put my tablet on the top of my car and I drove off, and it slid off, and it seems to be getting power, but all I see is really pretty colors all over my screen. I can't really get any pictures or anything like that. It's just like a kaleidoscope. So how? Well, it dropped from a significant distance, and likely the monitor is broken. So we actually had a member in Avery's cohort who did that. He had left his tablet on top of his car, drove out of his driveway. It didn't shatter the screen. He thought they left it at the restaurant they went to or what have you. So he types in the Find My iPad or whatever and goes to, try to find the location. And the thing was able to get just barely enough of a signal from his Wi-Fi that he was able to find his tablet in a ditch next to his house. and it was still okay. So things happen. So asking probing questions continued. It is so important to actively listen to your clients and ask them open-ended probing questions so that you will build good relationships and learn any important details. It also kind of shows the customer that you care about the problem. You know, it's not just, you know, formulaically going through whatever script you're handed and then just assuming it at that point. But your client won't necessarily do all the talking. You will also need to explain certain things to your clients, especially if you're going to be remoting into their computer or doing things on their computer. You need to explain to them what you're doing. Sometimes you might just fix a client's problem. More often, though, you will talk a client through the solution that they will perform on their own. Or even if you are directly fixing an issue, your client might want to know what you have done. In all cases, when you discuss issues with your client, client-friendly language will be especially important. All right. Imagine you are a medical doctor. You're doing some important and complex research on a rare disease. You have a colleague, a fellow surgeon who wants to know about your research. You would explain your research to your colleague using very technical language and with as many details as you can, right? Because you want them to be able to understand exactly what you're doing. I don't know, Julian. I love manual transmissions. My wife refuses to drive anything automatic.
Yeah, but imagine in traffic, you have to stop every 2 seconds.
That's no fun.
Yeah, no.
But when you get out on the open road,
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
yes.
But she grew up driving manual, and she still has the first car she ever bought because it's hard to find manuals now. So in traffic, especially on hills, because a lot of people don't understand manuals, so they'll pull right up on your bumper. If you're in steep hills, like places like San Francisco, St. Louis, or Seattle, stuff like that, where you got really steep hills, oof, it can get rough.
Yeah, that's scary. And a lot of cars you could use, you know, the e-brake.
Mm-hmm.
But in the car that I bought is like an electric e-brake, so it's a button.
Oh,
So
okay.
it doesn't really work like I would.
Yeah, because like the old ones, you could actually put the manual, like the parking brake on, and then slowly pull out with it on, and then you just kind of release it as you go.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
with this one, I
Mm-hmm. With the E1, you can't. I'll have to remember that. It's probably just a piston that goes through the rotor that stops it from moving, because that's easy to put that on an actuator just to go in and out. Yeah, a lot of them can't drive stick, Mark. That is like one of they actually, insurance companies consider manual transmissions an anti-theft device. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, I remember I got my first automatic stick shift when I was going to college. I bought it on Friday, learned how to drive it on Saturday, and drove it back to school on Sunday.
So, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. I mean, once you get it though. So, all right. Continuing on. So like, you know, a surgeon talking to another surgeon, they're going to be using very specific language, talking at a high level, and using as many details as possible. Now, imagine that same surgeon, you have a 7-year-old patient who has this disease, and you're meeting with the parents of that patient, and you want to explain your research to see if they would be interested in joining your clinical trial. How would they be talking differently than they would to a fellow surgeon? Cynthia.
Well, if you're with your colleagues, you would talk the actual medical language,
Mhm.
and when you're dealing with patients or anything outside of the relationship between patient and the hospital, your colleagues, is that you don't talk the medical jargon to your
Yes.
patients. You try to keep it as very simple as possible so that it's relatable and understandable to the patient and the patient's family.
Exactly. So, yes, Jessica.
I would make sure that there's empathy, that I'm showing and sharing empathy with them, because again, this is about their child, and it's not just a routine conversation as it would be with my colleague, where it's a little bit more black and white, you know. I will be sure the parent understands that my number one concern is their child, and I would encourage the parent and the child to ask questions as I'm speaking, in case they just want a better understanding of something that, even though I'm not using the biggest medical terms, but they might be like, okay, what does that process consist of? Great question. I want to make sure that it's an interactive, and they know that I want them to, that it's okay to ask questions while I'm explaining the disease and situation at hand.
Understood. Venkata.
Yeah, this relates to me a lot. Actually, this is my personal experience. I got a bone cyst surgery when I was 14 near my knee. So at that time, one of the doctors asked me, are you interested in the research program? We may ask you a few questions. So this reminds me that situation. So
Okay, excellent.
I am one of the rare cases of whole India. That's the reason they did a research for the bone cyst. They removed the cyst and they kept this fresh bone cement of someone else so that I can walk.
Oh, amazing. Absolutely, that's amazing. But when they talk to you, they didn't use like a ton of medical jargon. They just they kept it pretty layman's terms and let you know exactly, you know, here's kind of what we're doing. And then you ask a lot of questions and they try to explain it as best they can, right?
Yes. Only I said yes because if in case if something happens similar like this to someone else, it will be helpful. So I was 14 at that time.
Okay. Oh, thank you for sharing that. And that relates directly to what we were talking about. So yes, when you're speaking to a client or a patient's parents or something like that, you're not going to be using that medical specific jargon if you're a surgeon talking. Same thing in IT. We're not going to be using heavily technically laden verbiage when talking about what's going on with the client's computer with them. So we're going to talk at their level. So basically what we just talked about summed up. Stop sharing. Pause.